Good morning, friend. Welcome back to my mom's kitchen. My name is Becky if you're new, and this is my mom, Susan.
Good morning.
And we are about to get ready on making, I think, 15 to 16 different recipes. We are going out of town next week for a family reunion camp out. And to make our life easier once we get to the camp out, we're going to do a lot of the meal prep and food prep in advance. Some of the things we are going to make, like this recipe right here, the meatballs, for the spaghetti and meatball night, we're actually going to make the meatballs, cook them, and then freeze them. And then all we need to do is throw them in the crock pot with the spaghetti sauce my mom has already made. Some of the recipes, like these two right here, the pineapple jalapeno chicken and the honey chipotle flank steak, which my mom has set up little stations here. The recipe is here and the ingredients that we need to make the recipe are down here. These are recipes that we are going to make the marinades and freeze the meat raw. And then my brother-in-law is bringing his Blackstone and he's gonna be doing a lot of the cooking when we get to the camp out. One of the first things my mom is gonna get started on is chili Colorado. And so she's got her meat prepped here and she's gonna get going on that. We also are gonna make homemade baked beans, refried beans, Spanish rice we're gonna prep. And while my mom is getting going on the chili Colorado, I have 2 baking, possibly 3. We haven't decided if we're gonna make the Rice Krispies today or not, but we've got 2 birthdays we're gonna celebrate while we're out of town. So we're gonna make an old-fashioned pound cake, and then we are gonna make monster cookies. This is just gonna to enjoy to eat. Same with the Rice Krispies.
We may experiment with taking the Rice Krispie treats, cutting them about the size of a marshmallow, and trying to toast them. I think that's going to be a really fun adventure. And I want to brag on one of my granddaughters. In planning for the trip, she, for the first time, used a paring knife and hulled and sliced strawberries from the farmer's market to put on that pound cake Becky mentioned. She was so proud of herself. She is 7 years old.
So the strawberries are already diced, sugared, and in the freezer. So we're just going to thaw those and make some whipped cream the day that we're gonna have the pound cake, and we'll thaw the pound cake and we'll have a homemade cake ready to go. So let me get going on these monster cookies. I think that this is what we're gonna go first. My mom does have a nice list going right here. The spaghetti sauce, we were gonna make it, but she found some in her freezer, so we don't need to make that. I have a vanilla pound cake in my freezer that I'm gonna bring, and so the one that I'm gonna make today is gonna be lemon, and then this, without the check marks, those are all the things we're gonna make today. So I'm gonna get going on this recipe first. For the monster cookies, we are gonna double this recipe. So I need to start with 2 cups of butter going in the mixer. I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to fit all of this in your mixer, Mom.
Well, we'll just go for it. Do it. You can do it in 2 batches.
Next, we're going to add the peanut butter, and we need 2 cups of peanut butter. This is creamy peanut butter. I'm sure you could use crunchy if you wanted to. So I'm going to start creaming this together. To the butter and peanut butter, I'm going to add the sugar, and we actually need to cream all of these 3 or 4 ingredients together for about 2 minutes. I'm gonna add vanilla and duck eggs. So I just bought these duck eggs from, I think, a family in your church.
It's a children's pastor.
And we're using duck eggs because one of my sisters, her kids, has an allergy to chicken eggs and they can eat duck eggs. So luckily we had a good source for duck eggs, and they recommended that you cut the amount of eggs in half because they're so much larger than a chicken egg. So the recipe we're following calls for 4 eggs for a doubled recipe. And so I'm only gonna add 2 of these duck eggs, and we're gonna use the duck eggs throughout the whole cooking and baking projects today so that my nephews can eat all these goodies. And Mom, do you happen to have a large bowl? Because I think I'm gonna have to finish mixing this cookie dough by hand in a large bowl. I just added the flour. Now I'm gonna add the baking powder. salt. And I'm gonna keep all these baking ingredients out because we have a lot of baking we're gonna do today. We are also gonna be making biscuits, and I almost forgot about that. So this is where we're gonna add 6 cups of oats, and I did not think that this part would actually fit in the mixer. 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm gonna go ahead and stir this together. I do end up adding the 2 other duck eggs. The cookie dough, the first round that I bake, they turned out, but they were a little bit on the dry and crumbly side. So I did go ahead and add the amount of eggs that this recipe called for. And to the rest of this, we're going to add our chocolate chips and our M&Ms. We're going to mix this, and it was good that I put it in a bowl and mixed it by hand.
Okay, I'm going to start this authentic chili Colorado. We had it in a restaurant, Mark and I did, and we really, really liked it. And it was an upscale Mexican restaurant, and it was rather expensive. And I decided I can make this. So I did a lot of research, and I looked at several recipes and decided on the ones that had the similar ingredients, but I really had no idea I don't even know how to say it. 3 of the peppers that are dried. And I went to Winco, they have them in the bulk, and I met the most amazing Hispanic grandma who gave me a lesson and showed me how to choose the best peppers. So that was a really fun experience. So I'm gonna make a chili sauce by simmering this kind of pepper, which we measured and counted out when we bought them, and then 8 of this kind, and these are the really hot, spicy ones, so I'm only going to put 4 of them in. Onion seasoning, and then it's going to simmer. I'm going to remove the stems and the seeds, because that's where the spice is, where the heat is, before we use them. And that way it's very flavorful, but not tear your head off spicy.
So while my mom's working on that, I'm just finishing mixing up the rest of this cookie dough. Once I have it nice and fully combined, I will start baking these. And we're gonna actually bake these and freeze these, and then we'll just take them out of the freezer before we eat them that night, probably, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, we won't have that much freezer space, most likely. So they will be frozen until they thaw at the campground.
Is this the size cookie you would like, Mom, for these?
Yeah, those are good size cookies.
Okay. These monster cookies were a request from my dad. He wanted a peanut butter M&M cookie, and this recipe calls for a little bit of beautiful flaked salt, and his favorite is not the salt part, so I'm only going to put salt on half of these cookies on the top, and we'll just put them in separate bags, so those who like the sweet and salty can enjoy that, and those who don't have to. And we're making these cookies about half the size that the recipe says so that we can just get more cookies out of it.
Oh, and you know, I think making them half the size, they will hold up better and they might
not break as easily.
Correct, in the freezing and handling process.
That makes sense. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these in the oven I'm gonna start the timer for 6 minutes. This is gonna take quite some time to get through all this cookie dough. That's why I wanted to get this started first, so that while these are baking, I'm actually gonna start a couple other recipes.
And I'm still peeling peppers.
I'll set the timer for 4 minutes, and then I'll rotate these for 4 minutes. And the time it takes for the first round of cookies to make, I think I can make the pineapple jalapeno chicken marinade in the blender really quickly.
This is very tedious. The last two times I've made this, the peppers were much drier and easier to handle. I could just take the stem off and run a paring knife. Now this one looks like it's gonna go really well. Down it, open them up, and all the seeds came out. Well, that's how they normally do, but all the rest of those were too soft, and they were much harder to get the seeds out.
I wonder if that means they're fresher.
It might, I don't know.
My mom just helped me open up the pineapple because I didn't know how to use her can opener. She's got a really cool can opener that makes it so that there's no sharp edges. So for the marinade, I'm gonna start with 1 can of crushed pineapple, a big old handful of garlic. These are just fresh frozen garlic that my mom gets at the store and freezes them. Jalapenos, I did take the seeds and the ribs out just to reduce the spiciness level a little bit. The recipe calls for fresh ginger. I'm just gonna use some powdered ginger today.
I think I have some in my freezer if you want to, because you're gonna blend it.
I already put it in.
Oh, okay.
That would have been a good idea.
Well, I think the next recipe calls for it too.
I'm gonna add some apple cider vinegar. And I'm gonna substitute coconut aminos for soy sauce because there is someone that's gonna be coming on this camp out who has a soy allergy. So throughout this entire cooking process, we are gonna use coconut aminos so that we don't have to worry about cross-contamination because it's a pretty serious allergy. Honey.
And olive oil, because the majority of other oils are, there's soy in it because soy is less expensive.
They're blends.
Yes, they're blends.
Okay, this is some honey. I think my mom heated this up to make it easier.
I did, because it was a block.
Was it?
It was a total block.
I'm just gonna use
I'm
all
not
of
gonna
it.
buy honey ever again in plastic because you can't heat that up. I tried.
That's a good point.
I had a bunch of these come in Costco, 3 in a pack. Well, they're small, which is nice, but they still crystallize. And I tried weighting them because I had 3 that had an inch or 2 in. And I tried weighting them down and trying to submerge them in hot water. Of course, they floated up. It didn't work. I ultimately threw them out because I couldn't get the honey out. So I'm not going to buy it in plastic anymore. But I think I have a source.
I was gonna say, you might have someone who might be able
I have
to.
a source that I would get them in mason jars.
Probably not this year. I think we're gonna probably not try to harvest any honey till next year, but that would be the dream. Okay, so that is a little bit of olive oil. That's my timer for the cookies.
They smell good.
The cookies aren't quite done yet, so I'm gonna give this a taste test since I didn't actually measure anything. Oh, that's delicious. Do you wanna try that, Mom?
Yeah.
I'm glad I took the seeds out of that jalapeno because there is still some heat in that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted any hotter for those who are not
Fans. That
Yes.
is delicious. Do you think that needs anything? I did add salt.
No.
I think I forgot to show you that. So now that our marinade's done, we went ahead and bought 2.5 gallon size freezer bags because we're gonna be putting 8 pounds of chicken in this. And so I'm just gonna pour this marinade into this freezer bag. I haven't processed the chicken. We're gonna put chicken thighs in here, and I do wanna cut off the excess fat just so that if it doesn't render out, you don't have a big piece of fat. But that is our second recipe done. And then I can rinse out the blender and we can start the third recipe when I get another round of cookies in the oven. Mom, do you have more cookie sheets that I could get even more cookies?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm gonna
Those look perfect.
put your basket over here
Okay.
and we can line up the I'll have
Oh,
to.
these are crumbly. So my cookies are falling apart. So I went ahead and I added the 2 extra eggs that the recipe called for, even though the lady we got the duck eggs from said to reduce the eggs by half, because I don't think they had quite enough egg to hold together. This cookie dough feels a little better after adding the extra eggs. Now that I have another round of cookies in the oven, I'm gonna go ahead and get going on the honey chipotle marinade for the flank steak. And we're gonna start with honey on this one as well. I just rinsed out this blender. Now I'm adding oil. This is one of my favorite, both of these actually are two of my absolute favorite marinades. Now this one is gonna be a little bit on the spicier side because it has chipotles in adobo and you can't really take the seeds out of it. So that's why we wanted to have two options so that there could be one that's not so spicy because this one is gonna have quite a bit of heat to it. Next I'm gonna add some sweet paprika, chili powder.
These onions will go in the chili Colorado.
Are you getting ready to brown? Oh no, you're
No,
still.
I just chop them and put them in there. It's going to be like a chili sauce.
Okay.
They'll cook to mush, and then the recipe actually says to strain it, but I found using the stick blender, the skins were indetectable. So that's a lot less work.
You could probably throw it in the blender too. But a stick blender, then you don't have to transfer hot sauce.
Right.
So I just added cumin, paprika, chili powder, oregano. Now I'm gonna add a handful of garlic and salt. And then I have one more ingredient I gotta go grab from over here that I brought from home. I have some homegrown cilantro here. Now I've put this recipe on chicken. I have put this recipe on chuck roast and slow cooked it in the slow cooker and had a kind of a shredded beef, and that is fantastic as well.
That sounds yummy.
And then this is the first time we're putting it on flank steak. So now I think I'm gonna add, well, let's blend this up and give it a try. Because again, I'm not really measuring anything. We're measuring with our heart. We're using the recipe as kind of a guide. I grabbed a new spoon here. That's actually not too hot. Wanna taste it?
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Oh, that is good.
All right.
That almost tastes like a barbecue sauce, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's really good. I think do we need cilantro for anything else?
Let's see. I think that's it. The only thing is for the Mexican slaw that we will assemble
When we're there?
when we're there. And
Okay, so I'm just gonna add this in here. Okay, our second marinade is done. I'm gonna get this into another 2.5 gallon size freezer bag. And we are just prepping for this trip, and everything we make is gonna go into the freezer, but we are gonna make a lot of stuff fresh when we get there. We are just trying to save ourselves some time camping by making the marinades and things like that now, so we don't have to do that.
Well, this
When we're there.
campground is actually a marina, and one of our daughters has a boat, so we'll be tubing and cruising the lake, and there's an island you can hike to with a lighthouse on it, and my sister's planning a kids camp with scavenger hunts and birdhouse painting and tie-dyeing t-shirts, and it's just going to be so much fun. I want to enjoy the family, not just the cooking.
Yes. But we still want to eat really well while we're there, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, so second marinade is done. Those cookies should be coming out of the oven, and I should be able to rotate the oven.
This is the equivalent of 2 medium onions. When we were at Winco, the option were onions this big or onions this big. I chose the smaller ones.
I'm just cleaning up a little bit.
4 salt, 2, 3, 4. 4 cumin. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 oregano. Can't have too much. Garlic. That's it. And we're going to fill it with water. Oh, bay leaves. 4 bay leaves. 2, 3. There we go. Okay, we filled it with water. We're gonna bring it to a boil. Once it boils, we'll put the lid on and let it sit for 20 minutes.
These are the flank steaks that I'm gonna get into this chipotle marinade. These are kind of frozen. We officially now have this recipe done. I just need to mix this marinade around the meat. I'm gonna start trimming the chicken, just the fat off the chicken thighs, and my mom is gonna start browning the meat for the chili Colorado.
And I'm going to do it in small batches so that it gets crisped. Putting some olive oil in a pan. I'm gonna wait till the dot gets red, and then I know it's hot enough. And I'm going to dredge small amounts of meat in the flour, salt, and pepper seasoning mix and brown it in small batches. But I'm going to use my hands to do that.
Easier. So while she's doing this, I'm gonna work on the chicken.
I bought this meat quite a while ago when it was on sale, and I cut it into the size pieces that I need for the chili Colorado and froze it in anticipation of this event. It's stew meat. It doesn't have to be anything particularly tender because it's going to stew all day. And actually, when I bought it, you and I were shopping for another event. It was the day after a holiday, I think. I'm gonna wait till that gets a little hotter. And at Winco on Mondays, following the weekend, what meat didn't sell gets marked down. And in my opinion, it's still just fine. So following a holiday weekend, oh, I know what it was. It was Memorial Day.
Oh yeah.
And who does stew on Memorial Day? So all the stew meat was marked way down, and I got like 6 packages.
In anticipation to make this recipe.
Yes, I wouldn't have bought 6 packages of stew meat necessarily at one time, but I knew we were going to do this, and it's the cut of meat I've used in the past, so why not get it when it's less expensive? I changed my gloves, and this is sufficiently brown. I'm going to dump it in this bowl to cool, and I'll start another round. Put some more oil in, and we'll put some more meat in. We'll start the process again. The reason we're doing it in batches is so that the meat actually browns and doesn't start steaming. My grandma used to do pan-fried fish the same way with flour, salt, pepper, and maybe some paprika, and it was so good. She would set up an electric skillet on her back porch, and she would have a smelt. Do you know what smelt are? They're these little fish that run seasonally, and you catch them with nets in rivers. They're so good. And all you do is take the guts out, freeze them we would freeze them in milk cartons, cardboard milk cartons. So the day before she'd thaw them, and then we'd go out on the back patio or back porch with an electric skillet. She would dredge them this same way and fry them. They were a treat.
I don't think I've ever eaten smelt before.
Really?
Nope.
Well, you know, I don't even know if they have it here. I mean, I grew up in Michigan, and they would live all year in the Great Lakes, and then they would return through the rivers to spawn, and that's when you dip them. You drag these big nets, and you'd scoop them up. Great fun. Very tasty. I got distracted in another part of the kitchen, and my skillet got too hot. So I poured the grease out. I'm going to use tongs with a paper towel to wipe it, so the next batch doesn't have that burned oil flavor. And I wouldn't use my hand to do this. at all. But this worked perfectly, perfectly. Now we'll do the next batch. Fresh oil.
So here we have our 2 marinated meats done. So I'm just gonna mark what they are and then we can stick these in the freezer. This is 4 flank steaks and this is 8 pounds of chicken. And on the day we're having this, I think we're having 30 people that night.
Yes, yes.
So I have the last cookies in the oven. So I just checked off the flank steak, the chicken thighs, and the cookies. And my mom is gonna make the taco meat in this same pan after she browns all the meat.
I think I'm on batch 5.
Nice. And so she's working on the chicken Colorado and then she'll get this done right after. I think what I'm gonna get going on next is I'm gonna make the meatballs because we are going to cook those before we freeze them. So they need to cook, chill, or not chill, but cool down, and then we can put them in the freezer.
Can I suggest
Yeah.
you work on one of the baked goods? We have brownies to make and
yeah, no
cake to
problem.
make.
Yeah.
Because those will take like an hour for the pound cake probably to bake.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. I'll do the pound cake next then. And then we might even need to turn the oven. I'm not sure actually. I'm gonna check the recipe and we'll get going on the pound cake. This pound cake recipe is not like one I've ever made before. This is one my mom found and it's a very old-fashioned, the name of the pound cake is old-fashioned pound cake. And originally we were going to flavor this lemon, but I forgot to put the lemon juice and the lemon zest in. So this is going to be just a vanilla pound cake and it turns out delicious. Now what's a little bit different from other pound cake recipes I've made when it comes to this one is there is no leavening agent in it other than the eggs. So what I did is I creamed the butter and sugar together for about 4 to 5 minutes. I got that butter and sugar really light and fluffy, and then I added 1 egg at a time, mixing that together, added salt and vanilla, and that was the only ingredients that went into this pound cake. I was a little bit worried about how this was going to turn out without using, baking powder, baking soda, some sort of chemical leavening agent. And I was surprised. It was beautiful. And this is some vanilla my mom has. It's a clear vanilla. And man, this vanilla is delicious. It's got a very strong vanilla flavor. This recipe actually did not call for salt, but I did end up adding just a little bit of salt because there is so much sugar in it, and I like the counterbalance of the salt and sugar. And then if I forgot earlier that there definitely is flour in this recipe too. So this recipe just has eggs, sugar, butter, flour, vanilla, and then I added a pinch of salt. Now this recipe does say to put it into a bundt pan, but we didn't think a bundt cake would travel as well and it would take up more space in a cooler. So we ended up just putting these in some 9x5 loaf pans, and we ended up making a loaf pound cake. And we weren't sure if we should do 2 or 1. And so we just ended up doing 2, and we got 2 short, delicious, yummy pound cakes. This recipe is originally designed for a bundt pan, but my mom thought that it would be easier to transport just a regular loaf pan. So we're gonna put it in these 2 loaf pans. We can bake them, and then once they're done baking, because I put parchment paper, we will be able to take them out, let them cool, and then to transport them, we can put them back in these disposable loaf pans, and then they're less likely to break throughout the transport process. So we're gonna let those bake. Because there's not much in each one of those, I think we'll probably start with like 40 minutes, do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
And then, because they might be small.
Last batch. Note to self, use a bigger bowl for dredging because I made a huge mess all over this counter and all over this stove with flour.
So this is now come to a boil, and now I don't think I can lift that.
Okay.
It is just sitting and steeping for 20 minutes.
I'm going to brown the taco meat in the same pan.
Do you want me to break this up?
Sure, that's what I was going to do next. I'm going to give that a stir.
For the meatballs, let me make sure I do this correctly. So the upper oven, I do not want to mess this up.
Make sure you push start if you change it because the oven will turn off.
Okay.
And then you'll look and it will have not baked. Ask me how I know that.
Do you want to double check this, Mom? I want to make sure the lower oven is set to 425 because we're going to bake the meatballs. That's what I'm going to do next is make the meatballs.
Yes, it says
preheating.
preheat on both of them. But the tricky thing about this oven is if you don't press start, it looks like it's all happening,
But
and then you come back and the oven is stone cold.
Don't want
And
that.
it's sad when you just adjust something and you have something baking, you want to turn it up or turn it down, and 10 minutes later you come and it's turned off.
I didn't want to put that on 425. Okay, so the meatballs, I've already started them. I'm going to grab some gloves because I am going to do the meatballs. Because I'm going to be working with 6 pounds of meat, it's going to be easier if I just mix them with my hands.
We made an executive decision that this isn't going to be enough hamburger meat for traditional ground beef tacos. If it doesn't get eaten on the taco night, it will get eaten at another time, and if it doesn't get eaten then, it will come home to whoever's home is housing the rest of the relatives who are staying for another week, and they'll eat it then.
In this bowl, I have 3 pounds of Italian sausage that I took out of the casings and 3 pounds of ground beef. And I'm going to get all the ingredients in here before I start mixing. So the first thing I'm going to add for these meatballs is Parmesan cheese. Hopefully this bowl is big enough. Sweet basil.
Do you want me to clean the big bowl for you?
No, I think I'm good since I've already messed this up. I'll make it work.
Okay.
Garlic, you could use fresh garlic. I'm going to use powdered just because it's going to save me a step. Parsley, breadcrumbs, and our duck eggs. Now I'm going to add salt and pepper. So now I'm going to mix this up. Oh, thank you, Mom.
What?
You washed this cookie scoop for me.
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So I'm just going to get these meatballs out on this cookie sheet and we're going to bake them in the oven.
I'm going to season this 4 pounds of ground beef. It's nice and browned. I have half of a bag of taco seasoning that I mixed myself from a recipe that I'm sure Becky's posted one place or another over the years. And that's not enough, obviously that's not enough. I'll just use McCormick's. I'm going to pour it all on. I'm going to add the rest of this, not the whole rest of this, but I'm going to add more of this. They're slightly different color because of the slightly different amounts of ingredients. I'm going to stir it up and then I'll add some liquid. I just use water to simmer it and cause the onion flakes in there to rehydrate, reconstitute, and get the flavors all melded in. We'll cool it and then we'll freeze it for the camp out. And that's not enough. Okay, now I'm going to add some liquid. And I'm going to just do it from the sink. Now I'm just going to simmer it again and get it nice and saucy. Oops, this one broke.
Oh, that's, yeah.
I mean, you can buy them.
So now we've finished the taco meat and where the meatballs on. Meatballs are done. Taco meat is done. So what we're gonna do now
Is tidy up.
yeah, it's kind of a mess, and we still have quite a few more things we need to do. The Colorado or the chilies are cooling off so that my mom can blend them. She had them boil for probably another 20 minutes or so. So we're gonna unload the dishwasher, get the dishwasher loaded, and then we will get going on. I'll probably start making the biscuits, and my mom will finish the chili Colorado. And
I want to really clean the counters and the island because we're done now with the raw meat.
Yeah, so
And we're going to do,
sanitize.
we're going to do some more baking, and I think I feel better when it's cleaner.
yeah, not only is it cleaner, but we can think a little bit better as well. Okay, so I'll help you. I'll set this down real quick and I'll help. These turned out beautiful after I added the amount of eggs the recipe called for, even though they were very, very large duck eggs. They still needed the 4 eggs. We got the meatballs out of the oven and we're gonna let these cool and then we'll bag them up. The pound cakes are out of the oven and they look really good. And then my mom is gonna go ahead and finish up the chili Colorado and I'm gonna get going on the biscuits. And the kitchen has kind of been reset so that we can keep moving on our list. We figured before I get going on the biscuits, I'm gonna go ahead and just get this taco meat in the fridge and then in the freezer because it's now
ready.
It's cooled enough that we can go ahead and do that.
And I'm going to stick blend the chili Colorado sauce now that the onions are actually cooked and the chilies themselves are, the flesh is coming off the skins. Last minute, I pulled the bay leaves out before I simmered it because I figured I would rather put them in to cook when it's easy to get them out than to blend them and have little chunky, crispy bay leaves in the bites. I sprayed it all over my kitchen.
While she's finishing up the sauce, I'm gonna go ahead and put the beef that she browned up that is now cooled into a 2.5 gallon size freezer bag so that when she's done making the sauce, we can just pour it right in here.
Great idea. Well, I cleaned the chili Colorado sauce off the wall. Don't lift the stick blender up when you're using it. There we go. All right, shall we taste this and see if it's...
Yeah, I'll get some spoons out. Oh, wow.
Is it too spicy?
Nope,
Oh, good.
I don't think it's spicy at all.
There's no unspicing it.
Yeah, that's true.
There's only heating it up. There's
That
no
has really good
unspicing it.
flavor.
Isn't that yummy?
Yeah. It's actually, I would say, mild.
Yes, it is. And now I'll put the bay leaves in.
Yeah, that's really good. It tastes fresh too, even though they are dried peppers. It's got a nice fresh flavor.
Maybe you need some help.
You could probably pour it now. Let me hold it for you.
There's a little bit of flour you can see on the meat, and that will continue to thicken the sauce.
It's a big bag. Do you want to just pour that into here?
I
Or you
want it to cool.
Okay, so I'll throw this in the fridge.
Yeah, do that because this needs to cool.
Okay. So I just looked up the recipe for the biscuits that we're going to be making, and this is perfect because we need the oven preheated to 425 and that lower oven is preheated to 425. This was the only recipe we didn't have printed, and we are going to triple this recipe. We were only going to make 2 dozen biscuits, but there's going to be 18 people, and I just don't think that's going to be quite enough. So we are going to make triple the recipe. So I need to, what is 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4? 1.5 plus, so that'd be
I'm just going to do it
2
in
1/4?
decimals.
2 1/4?
I think that's right. 1.75 times 3. 5 3/4. 1.75
No. Times 3?
times 3.
It's not 5, I don't think.
1.75, that's 3/4,
Yeah.
times 3, 5 1/4. Because there, 3 are the.
No, because
1 1/4.
3 cups.
Yeah, 3
You have
single
less
cups.
than 3 single cups.
You have more than 3 single cups. You said 1 3/4.
No, just 3/4.
Oh, maybe you did.
I might not have. I don't know. We have
Let's
record.
just say we are not mathematicians.
No. 3/4 times 3.
Okay, yes.
3/4
all right.
times 3. That makes sense. Why we both were very confused by each other's math. I think that's 2 1/4.
0.75 times 3, 2 1/4.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this milk here is I am going to put a little bit, you can use lemon juice or vinegar, and we're basically going to make buttermilk, which we realized we forgot to add, or I forgot to add lemon to our pound cakes. So we have just vanilla pound cakes, which I think will be good.
Well, if it's any consolation, the recipe is for vanilla pound cake, but I've made it lots by just squeezing 3 lemons and using the zest of 3 lemons and adding that much extra liquid, making it a little longer.
Mom, do you have a pastry knife?
I do.
Okay. So I added flour, salt, a little bit of sugar. Now I'm going to add 6 teaspoons of baking powder. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm going to add baking soda. I already added the salt, so I'm going to mix this together. And I have my butter here. I think I'm going to take a knife actually and just cut it into smaller pieces. You could grate this butter in here if you wanted to use a box grater. I'm going to use a pastry knife when I get in there and break up the rest of this butter. So I'm happy with how this is looking. I've just been kind of working this butter in. There's still some big chunks. There's some small chunks. It's kind of what I like. My mom is refilling her flour, and I'm going to turn this into biscuits. You can see how this milk has kind of thickened up a little bit. So I'm going to just put this in the middle here. I'm not going to put all of it because I might not need all of it. And I'm just going to start working.
I need a biscuit lesson here. I never make them because I don't know how. I remember my mother never made them. And my dad was an excellent cook, but he didn't really bake, except some desserts. So I never watched anybody make them. And I've always been intimidated, so I've never done it.
You've never made biscuits? You used to make them from a mix.
Yeah, Bisquick.
Yeah.
Bisquick, Jiffy Bisquick or whatever, but I've never made them from scratch. So yes, I'm going to pay attention.
Well, the key is as little liquid as possible and to work it as little as possible. And then the big key is you actually laminate it, so you fold it. I'll show you.
My workaround for not ever making biscuits, we did a freezer meal video, a while ago, a couple of years ago, I think, early on. And it was like I think is it not shepherd's pie because that has mashed potatoes. Chicken and a biscuit.
Chicken and a biscuit.
Well, Mark would love it, but I am afraid to make biscuits.
That's surprising to me, Mom, because you'll make a lot of stuff.
I made mashed potatoes, and I finally threw away the ingredients for the biscuits. You know how we froze them separate? Because I'm never going to make this, and it's got the dry ingredient, the baking powder or whatever is in there already.
Yeah.
So I just made mashed potatoes and put it on top, and we had
chicken and a mashed potato?
Yeah, chicken, let's see, chicken pie.
Yeah, chicken cottage pie.
Yes.
So instead of shepherd's pie.
It was very good, and it would have been really good with biscuits on it.
That's funny. So this part is pretty hydrated, but there's always, when you're making biscuits, especially if you're making a big batch, there's always a bunch of dry spots. So instead of trying to mix this liquid into all of it, I just take the liquid and I mix it into that dry area down there. Depending on your humidity or dryness, you may need a little more liquid or a little less. So it's more about the consistency, just like when you make pie crust. And then I like to use a fork to do most of the mixing instead of my hands so that I'm not warming the butter up, because you don't want the butter to melt, you want it to stay nice and cold.
So a bigger bowl is very helpful.
Yeah. And then that I feel like we're not going to need.
Biscuit cutters.
Yes. I don't think we're gonna need all that liquid. So I'm just gonna set that aside. And of course you could use buttermilk instead of the milk and the lemon juice, but we didn't buy buttermilk just for this, so that works great too. But here's the trick part. We're definitely not gonna need this, but what I'm gonna do is cut it and lay it on top of itself and just push it together until it comes together well. And we're gonna laminate it this way.
So kind of like doing croissants or puff pastry.
Yep.
Those are all a lot harder than biscuits, and I don't even do biscuits.
Yeah, that's surprising to me, Mom. I didn't know you didn't do biscuits.
Well, I'm glad you didn't grow up never missing biscuits.
Well, I liked biscuits from the can, and we did have those. You would buy those sometimes too.
What we did with biscuits in a can was Pigs in a Blanket, one of Mark's favorite
Yeah, I like
kind
those
of
too.
a junk food. Or little sausage, you know, what are those little ones called? Smokies. We would either do smokies or regular hot dogs, cut them, put cheese in, roll them in a rolled out biscuit and bake them.
They were good.
They were very good.
Okay, so now our dough has come together.
What size would you like?
Do you have one that doesn't have, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
in here. Probably this size.
Perfect.
Then people can have two, and they're a little bit smaller than maybe I would make at home, but that way this dough will stretch a little bit farther. I don't even know if this is gonna be enough. I just need a rolling pin, Mom.
Okay. Well, and sometimes the little kids might not eat it all, and that way people who want more can have a second and we don't throw a bunch out.
Yeah, that's true. We won't go hungry. And then I do need, Mom, an egg wash. That does make them really pretty too. If you
Okay,
wanna,
then I'm gonna use one of the duck eggs.
yes. So here, I don't know if you can see, let me bring you in so you can see. You can actually see little pieces of butter in there.
Oh
So
yeah, it kind of looks like the pie crust with the little bits of
yeah.
butter.
And then another trick is you just go straight down. You do not
shells.
twist.
The shell is really hard.
Yeah, very thick.
I couldn't pull it apart. I cracked a hole in it because I couldn't pull it apart, but there's no shell in there. And
So Mom, the trick is not to twist.
oh,
So
straight
straight
down.
down. If you twist, you kind of seal the edges, and
Oh, then
then
it doesn't flake up.
it doesn't flake up as well, yeah. And you can either have them touching for kind of a softer cook on them, or you can separate them and they are crunchier, which I personally like when they touch.
Me too. I like soft baked goods.
I think I'm gonna roll this out a little bit more because it was a little bit thicker in the middle.
Yeah, that one is.
So that did not quite make as much as we were hoping for, so I'm gonna get these in the oven and then I'm gonna make the same amount of this, and that should be enough. We end up getting a 6 batch worth of biscuits made up, and they turn out fantastic. This is what the first batch looks like coming out of the oven, and this is what the second batch looks like going into the oven. And when I make biscuits in advance, typically what I do is I actually freeze my biscuits when they're still raw, and then I bake them from frozen. Well, my mom wasn't sure how we were going to be able to bake them. She does have a small air fryer that she takes camping with her, which is actually how we ended up reheating these biscuits that we made. And she didn't think that we would be able to bake the biscuits from frozen in any sort of timely manner. And we wouldn't be able to keep the dough frozen, you know, during the transportation. So we end up having the biscuits the first morning we get there. And, you know, we just figured it would be better to bake them in advance, and it ends up working out perfect. So if you ever want to meal prep biscuits, you can definitely either freeze them before they're cooked, or now I know that you can freeze them cooked and they turn out really great. With the biscuits and gravy, my sister she's the one that makes the sausage gravy, and she brings that frozen and then she reheats it in the crock pot, and it ends up being absolutely delicious. And my mom is now prepping the Spanish rice. So what she's doing is got all the rice ingredients in one, and then she's got little labels for the broth. and the salsa that she's going to put in the Spanish rice. And we do bring a rice cooker with us camping. And then I got those meatballs in the freezer. They had cooled down enough that I could go ahead and put those in some freezer bags. And then here my mom is going to measure out the spices we need for the night that we are going to have some homemade pinto beans. So I am going to show you how all these dinners kind of come together. The last kind of prep thing we're going to do right here is these cakes have now cooled enough. These are the pound cakes. They've cooled enough that we can go ahead and get them wrapped up and ready for the freezer. We officially got everything, well, all but 2 things on our list that we wanted to get done that we needed for the one breakfast and for the dinner components that we needed. So what we need to do now is go through and we're going to show you all that we got done and how we are going to package it and freeze it. And
I want to say this is a learning curve. We're thinking about it on the fly, making decisions, changing plans, having aha moments. It's going to be a lot of fun.
some of these items are actually going to come home with me in my freezer because my mom doesn't have quite as much freezer space, and I have a chest freezer that the one that I put my half a cow that I order in is almost gone, and so I've got a lot of space. So a lot of this is actually going to come home with me. And so let's go through all the components that we got done. So first, right here, we got 50 biscuits baked. We're gonna go ahead and package these up in Ziploc and freeze them.
We're gonna put them in these cardboard boxes to protect them so that they arrive and are consumed as biscuits instead of crumbs.
Yes. So these are just cooling. We got 2 vanilla pound cakes.
And we'll do the same thing. We'll freeze it back in one of the pans so that it's protected.
And I have a pound cake that I will be bringing as well. So on the day that we have this dessert, we will have 3 pound cakes.
And strawberries and ice cream. Someone will run to town and get ice cream and whipped cream.
These are baked beans, and I didn't show how my mom made these because we just made these together for my sister's baby shower. And so she just made these baked beans just like she normally does. And what are you going to do to package those up, Mom?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to cook them. They're dry beans and all the rest of the ingredients and more water than you would do if you were using canned beans. Cook it all day till it's done, and then I will put it in Ziploc bags and freeze it flat. And we will then put them back in the crock pot on the day we're going to eat them on low and keep an eye on it so they don't scorch.
And then over here is where we got the dinner components, and my mom made some labels. So here is 4 pounds of taco meat that's fully cooked, and then we've got 6 pounds of meatballs that are fully cooked. This is my mom's chili Colorado, and this was going to, we realized that we needed to actually freeze it in a 9x13 that actually fits inside.
Because this is the cooler, and that Ziploc bag flat doesn't fit in there. It doesn't fit this way or this way. That was one of those aha moments that they'll be frozen solid and we can't fit them in a cooler.
So we figured out that this 9x13 fits in that cooler, so we're gonna freeze it in this so we can actually get it into the cooler. And then we have our 8 pounds of jalapeno pineapple marinade, and I'm gonna freeze it like this so that it fits in the cooler. And then we have our 4 flank steaks.
Oh, I didn't make a label for that one.
So my mom is gonna go ahead and get the label made for that, or make a label. So we didn't make the Rice Krispies or the brownies. My mom has 2 sisters that are gonna be coming into town before we go camping. So she'll either make those sometime before they get here, or maybe they will do that together when my aunts get into town. And then we've got 2 side dishes that my mom prepped the components for.
This is the Spanish rice. I measured the rice and I added all the dry seasonings in the same baggie. I kept the recipe because someone else might actually assemble it for me. Then you use salsa and onions. So I'm going to stick this in the freezer, take the lid up so it can expand. Put that in the freezer. What I'll need to do though is remember to take it out of the freezer, or I'm not sure how I'll get it out of that jar.
That's a very good point.
And then this is the rest of the liquid, and I labeled it so someone didn't use it for something else. And the same as this, someone might think that that's accessible for something else.
And then we've got refried beans. These are some canned beans that I have made, and I'm gonna actually bring 4 more jars of beans. And then she has an onion in here, a pepper, and this is gonna go in the fridge, and all of her spices are right in here. So that will be ready to go. We'll throw all those components in a crock pot and we'll make a big pot of refried beans.
And I did the same thing. I stuck the recipe in it, so in case someone else is assembling it, they'll have the recipe. And I will grab the stick blender part. I already had packed the stick blender with the wire whisk to make the whipped cream. And I thought, oh, I don't need the blender, but I do need the blender, so I'll get that.
And then we have a huge box of cookies. So some of these have the salt on the top, and the ones that don't have salt on the top, we didn't label, but the ones that have salt on the top, we did label the bags, because there are some people in my family that don't like the salt on the top of their cookies. So I'm gonna be bringing home quite a bit of that meat, and I'll put that into my freezer. When we went shopping, we started buying some different items that we needed for camping, like paper products, and my mom got these totes. And so instead of putting all of this away, she figured she would go ahead and just start packing and getting ready for being out of town.
And of course, I put those giant Ziploc bags that we needed in the tote that was on the bottom. So this morning I had to like unpack it all to get that out. I think now I don't need anything else that's in there.
So that you can go ahead and close up and it's packed up. And then you've just been kind of packing different things that we got when we were shopping that didn't need to go.
Non-perishables.
Yeah, didn't need to go into the pantry and then come back out.
What I'm planning for this tote are the kitchen appliances, the stick blender, the crock pots, another large cutting board. I only have a small cutting board in the trailer, and we have to chop all those vegetables for the deconstructed kebabs. So I think having a decent size cutting board would be very helpful. So anyway, this is going to be a kitchen box, and it will be outside under the tables. These 2 totes will be kitchen boxes.
What we're gonna do, I think what the plan is, I guess I'm just saying this, but you can correct me, Mom, if I'm wrong, is the goal is to kind of make like an outdoor kitchen. My brother-in-law is bringing a Blackstone, and we're not gonna do any cooking really in your trailer.
Absolutely. It's not that big.
Yeah.
It's pretty small, and honestly, I don't really cook in my trailer unless I have no other option.
Like it's raining or something?
Yes, because I cook very aromatic things.
You'd rather be outside?
Yeah, well, I don't want my upholstery smelling like garlic or chili peppers or bacon. So I do prefer to cook outside.
So we will show you how we are gonna pull all of this together. This is just, I guess, phase 3, because we went shopping and we kind of went over the whole plan. And then now we've done all the prep. And then now we're actually gonna go in a week and enjoy family camping, and we're gonna eat all of this food, and we're gonna benefit from our previous self's efforts. You are making quite the tower there, Mom.
Well, these boxes are amazing because you can stack them. And
they're hard-sided.
Yes, they're hard-sided, and they collapse up flat. And I have this many more for the remainder of the pantry items that come from my house that we didn't buy, and for the produce.
Yes, so we did not buy all the produce that we need. So obviously we're gonna need probably fresh fruit and the vegetables for the dinners and things like that. And so my mom is gonna go camping. My mom's gonna go shopping, I think a day or 2 before we actually head out of town to get all the perishable items. That looks fantastic, Mom.
I'm honestly happy to keep that there in my house because it's really hot. We're going to be triple digits for the next 4 or 5 days maybe. I don't want to put it all in the garage.
No, everything would melt.
Yes, so I'm happy with it there. It's kind of out of the traffic pattern. So that works for me.
We're just gonna go ahead and pack up this box. I'm gonna bring this home with me, and I will put all of this in the freezer, and I will be responsible to bring this camping with us. So that's a big responsibility.
It is a really big responsibility because we're not anywhere near a decent, normal size grocery store.
I will remember, I will. So
Put Josh on it.
yes, I will put my husband on it because he will remember. So here you can see why we went ahead and put that chili Colorado in that 9x13 so we could actually get it to fit in here.
Let's see.
I think you could probably just lay them without the.
Well, you're going to redo it when you get home anyway.
Yeah, because I'm going to put it in the freezer when I get home. Good morning. We are heading out to the lake to go on this camping / I don't really know exactly what accommodations we're going to have when we get there. My parents are camping and I think we're in the lodge, but all I know is that my mom and I prepped a bunch of food and I'm going to show you how we're going to take all this food that we prepped and turn it into some really delicious dinners while we are out of town. So I went ahead and I put ice in the bottom of this cooler, and then all the frozen marinated meats and cooked meats are at the top part. So if we need to drain water off from the ice melting, we can do that. Here is the box of the monster cookies we made. And I remembered the 50 biscuits that we made for biscuits and gravy for tomorrow's breakfast. So we froze those biscuits after we baked them. They're still frozen, they'll thaw today, and tomorrow we will have biscuits and gravy for breakfast. And then here is the food that I packed for us, and we are ready to go. So I'll see you when we get to the campground at least, because that's where my mom is gonna be staying and she's gonna set up a whole outdoor kitchen. So my mom just got all set up, we got all settled in, and now she's gonna show you the whole kitchen setup.
I just went to get another bag of ice. We're running a tab up of ice. Welcome to my campsite. We've got about 20 people, 22, a couple more added for 5 days. And on one day we have an additional 6 coming. We're doing a family reunion, camp out, and a memorial service for my mom.
So Mom, do you wanna show us how you have this set up?
Okay, this is a very handy thing you can do for your coolers. It really keeps it better if you put a quilt or a blanket or even a towel or a tarp over it. It adds another layer of insulation. So this one has a lot of produce. This one has, I don't remember what's in it actually. We did some rearranging around. We have this area set up to serve from and function as storage. Because we have so many people and the bottled drinks are so much more expensive, the ones that are in here are bottled and it says lake or boat only. The rest of the time we're suggesting, especially the kids, drink lemonade or water and mark their cup.
And then she's got a bin over here with tons of crafts and toys for all the kiddos.
Oh, you should see this. My sister is the camp director. She's a retired preschool teacher, and she has so much cool stuff in here. They're going to paint birdhouses, and they're going on a, look at this, scavenger
hunt. A good idea.
Isn't that cute? They're gonna paint on their shirts that say, Cousin Camp is cool, or something like that. Anyway, so that'll be a lot of fun.
And then over here is kind of where the kitchen area is.
Well, you know, inside a trailer, my kitchen sink's about this big, and it's about this deep into the counter because it's on a 45-degree angle. And water is the enemy of travel trailers. You know, they go through an earthquake every time you pull them behind your vehicle, and they don't seal well. And if you get water anywhere long term, it just wrecks it. So we will be doing our dishes here. And really the only dishes we have are the large serving pieces and pots and things like that. And I have a spigot that comes out of here like a little handheld shower. So we will have hot water and we'll wash the big things here.
And then my sister, that's Emily's, isn't it?
No, this is mine. This
Oh.
is a gas, whoops, it's locked. This, well, gee, it all fell apart in the trailer. This is a gas grill. What about the earthquake? All the guts are messed up in there. This is a gas grill, and I do have a cast iron griddle that I can put it on it and function as a Blackstone. But we have a real Blackstone here My son-in-law is going to be the master chef for that. So we have propane tanks for that, and for this workspace.
She has her kitchen utensils down there.
Oh yeah, this is pretty cool. That's other additional pots and pans, foil, all that kind of stuff. And more waste baskets because we want to be nice.
And then she also set these collapsible ones up for recycle, for bottled drinks, and then just a garbage can here.
Now my travel trailer has very limited pantry space, very limited. We have kitchen pantry stuff here that's not food, the paper products, all that sort of thing in there, and another cooler, and more kitchen pans and utensils in this one. So we need to have storage for the food, and we just can't leave it outside. It's too hot, there's critters, all that sort of thing.
So the only food that's outside are things that are in a cooler.
Correct. So this is my pantry. Normally it's a little dinette table, but I needed to have it all out so I could see what's in it, and it's all the dry goods to feed 20 plus people for 5 days.
Now that I've showed you our setup, I'm going to show you how we're going to take all this meal prep and turn it into dinners and not really lunches, just dinners and a few breakfasts. So the first night we were there, my mom had prepped some corn on the cob before she left, and she had my nieces and nephews over. They shucked all the corn, they oiled it, seasoned it with salt and pepper, wrapped it in foil. They cooked that on the Blackstone. And then the first night we had burgers, and it was easy and delicious. We went with easy. These are the baked beans that my mom made and froze and put them in the crock pot early that day, and they turned out fantastic. And then she did bake up those brownies we talked about, and we had brownies for dessert on the first night. Now the next breakfast, or the first breakfast I should say, is when we had biscuits and gravy. We also cooked up some eggs on the Blackstone, and then this is my mom's little air fryer. We warmed up the biscuits. We had some delicious sausage gravy my sister made from scratch, and we had delicious homemade biscuits, sausage and gravy. People could put jam and butter on their biscuits if they wanted. Most people had one biscuit and gravy and one biscuit with some homemade jam on it. And then of course my mom brought a full-size coffee pot, and we had coffee, and we had a great first breakfast with our little fire. So the campground we were at, we couldn't have real fire, so my parents brought this like propane fire, and that was great so that we could still have that kind of like fire ambiance you want while camping, even though we couldn't have a wood fire. Now the next day, my mom put the chili Colorado in the crock pot, and she put the ground beef in the crock pot that was fully cooked, got those going, and then she got the pinto beans going, and she makes a fresh slaw. So, a couple days before we went out camping, she went to the grocery store and got the fresh produce that we needed. And then my sister toasted up not just corn tortillas. These are corn tortillas with a little bit of oil on the Blackstone. She also toasted up some flour tortillas, and I had never done that before. And if you want to elevate a tortilla to the next level, put a little bit of oil on, a cast iron on your stove at home, or if you have a Blackstone, toast up the tortillas. Don't cook them till they're crunchy, just warm them up. And this is so good. And when we went shopping, you all said I needed to get a Blackstone, so I'm seriously considering it because it was a lot of fun. Here my mom is showing you the meat that's all warmed up and cooked through, and this was dinner too, with some Spanish rice, pinto beans, and just really yummy taco fixing. So we had like sour cream and salsa and hot sauce and all those things. The next morning, my sister made some pancakes and some sausages, and we topped that with just delicious maple syrup. Now this is the night that we are celebrating my grandma, and we are having deconstructed kebabs. So we are sauteing all the veggies separately. So this is something that my mom went to the store and got before we went out camping, and we didn't prep this in advance. We took an afternoon, me, my sister-in-law, and my mom, and we cooked up the vegetables separately on the Blackstone so that they would not be overcooked or undercooked. And then we put them into these foil pans, and people could choose what they wanted. And then this was the night that we cooked up the chicken and the flank steak that we marinated. So we just made sure that we thawed those the day before. These sugar snap peas are from my garden. All the rest of the veggies were from the store, but I have a lot of sugar snap peas right now. So I brought 2 big bags and we enjoyed those for snacking during lunches. And then on this night, we had them sauteed with all these beautiful vegetables. The flank steak, which my sister-in-law cooked up beautifully on the Blackstone. My mom put some just white rice in the rice cooker, and then here my sister is cooking up the jalapeno pineapple chicken, and this dinner was fantastic. And then on this night we celebrated a birthday, so we whipped up some fresh cream and we made whipped cream with delicious pound cake that we made, and those strawberries that that my niece helped my mom prep from a local farm, and they were fantastic. The next day we had breakfast burritos, and my mom had made up some banana bread, and we had breakfast burritos and banana bread. She had froze that, it thawed, and we had beautiful breakfast burritos. Now the last night we were going to have spaghetti and meatballs, but we had so much leftover veggies from the night before. We decided to make a fried rice using those vegetables, add some eggs, cook up a little bit more rice, and do that instead of using the spaghetti and meatballs and making more pasta. And because my aunts are going to be in town for another week after we get home, we will just use those meatballs for a meal when my parents are at their house. So that is how we prepped for a huge family campout reunion for many, many people, and we just had a lot of fun in the kitchen and hanging out with family. So thank you, friend, for taking time out of your day to spend time with me and my mom as we prepped all these meals. They turned out fantastic. It certainly saved us a lot of time while camping, and we were able to spend more time hanging out with each other, enjoying each other's company, enjoying the great outdoors, and just having a good time as a family. So thank you for being here. If you want to watch some more videos of my mom and I'll pop some videos here you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. My mom and I greatly appreciate every single one of you, and we are grateful you are here. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and we can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.